Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at Black Hat USA. Terry Sweeney here with Dark Reading, and we are back with Dr. Renée Burton, Head of Threat Intelligence for Infoblox. Renée, you are certainly no stranger to the Dark Reading News Desk. Welcome back. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. It's great to be back here.
You're back with a second critical industry threat report on piece of malware, Decoy Dog Pupy, the rat toolkit that uses DNS to establish command and control, which is Infoblox's bread and butter, is it not?
Yeah, exactly.
Walk us through the new findings since your initial discovery of the malware back in April.
Sure. Yeah, so just give a little bit of context. I think we discovered Decoy Dog in April, and it's a DNS, command and control malware that was unknown. We published information back in April hoping that the rest of the industry would be able to figure out what is it, where is it, all those things. We're DNS people, and it was needing to be in the malware arena at this point. Unfortunately, no one figured it out. So it's full of mystery and intrigue. And instead, what we went back and looked at DNS, we looked at 15.5 million records and did a ton of analysis, a ton of statistics. And we were able to find out some major things. So the first thing we know very confidently now, that Decoy Dog is created and operated by very sophisticated actors, almost definitely nation-state actors running intelligence operations. They are using very highly targeted campaigns. They're running an individual compromised device persistently 10 to 12 months at a time.
Wow.
So they have access and they maintain that access. And then, really fascinating, they all responded to our April releases. Every single one responded in different ways. And one of the most interesting ways was one of the sets of controllers, they registered new domains within 24 hours of our social media posting.
Okay.
And they hot swapped all of their compromised devices to the new controller within 48 hours. So they are highly motivated to keep access, right? So that tells you whatever devices they've compromised, we don't know which devices, we don't know what vulnerabilities, whatever ones they have, they obviously can't gain access again easily. So they needed to move those people from one controller to another before they got caught.
Is that a heavy lift? Is transferring domains like that something that you wouldn't expect to happen in a 48-hour time span?
Yeah, it was stunning. I mean, for us, it was really a mic drop moment. The other thing is we were looking in our research to say, we knew that this was based on an open source remote access Trojan called Pupy, but we didn't know, was it just actually Pupy? We did not know. When we saw this transfer of domains from one controller to another, we knew for sure it was not. It was not Pupy, because you cannot do this with Pupy. So it was an entirely new capability that was extremely advanced and something that really only super sophisticated actors need to do, right? Most people do not need to do that.
Sure. Wow. Okay. So you said that the tool has been in use for about a year, and that the activity appears limited largely to Eastern Europe. Of course, now the question becomes, how concerned should regular users be about this particular piece of malware?
Yeah, so from my perspective, we as an industry and we as just human beings, we should all be very concerned about any case where we have unknown devices, we have an unknown vulnerability, and it's persistent and active and it's spreading. So we now know, we started with one threat actor, we now know there's at least 4 threat actors that we're able to identify. So while it's maintained right now in that Russia-Ukraine region of the world, there's no reason to believe that it's going to stay there, right? The other thing is, if we think about what has happened over time with things getting loose over malware, perhaps most significantly, the Pegasus spyware is believed to be tightly correlated to the execution of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post reporter, right? So that's a case where a nation state is able to use mercenary spyware and have real consequences to real people by spreading out malware.
That's really disturbing news.
Yes.
What can the industry do to build on this research? Are there items that might be on like a personal wish list of yours for where this could be taken, how it could be expanded, areas that are ripe for further research?
Yeah, so what we've done is really focus on DNS. That's what we do, right? So we did do partial reverse engineering of binary samples. There are at least 4 versions of Decoy Dog out there, and they need to be fully reverse engineered to understand what is actually happening in those. It'd be great if someone did that work and published it for the entire community. In addition to that, we have released a bunch of research data so people can first they can reproduce our work, but also they can make their own detectors and ensure that they can find this activity.
Infoblox's threat intelligence team noted a question from many in the industry about whether we're really securing our network if we're not monitoring DNS. This question seems like so obvious to me, and yet it's obviously not being asked broadly or certainly not answered. What does this mean? What's the importance for organizations to really get behind implementing a strong protective DNS strategy?
Yeah, so I think you see 2 things, right? One is because DNS is so powerful, there are fears about implementing controls at the DNS level because you want to ensure the performance of your network. If I go ahead and block access to Google, okay, I'm going to ruin your life, right? So that is where I think we get some people with fear. But if you're working with intelligence that's very strongly generated, Decoy Dog is a perfect example of the kinds of things that you can block access to prior to even knowing that there's malware. And the interesting thing about this, it's a great example of what power DNS has. It's exceptional in that case, but it's not the exception, it's actually the rule. So what we find overall is that by blocking access to DNS over and over and over again, we're able to prevent attacks in our customers' networks before anyone even knew that there was malware, right? So that's why you want to look at that.
That sounds important and useful.
I hope it is.
Fair enough. Shifting gears slightly, industry analysts are also reporting on Infoblox's position with regard to DNS detection and response, also known as DNSDR. Explain how this differentiates Infoblox and how it can help companies who are up against threats like Decoy Dog with early detection and response.
Yeah, so I think just riding off that last question that we were talking about, where you want to be able to block stuff at the DNS layer, but you also want to be able to do it in a way that you're not adversely affecting the performance of the network. In the case of Infoblox, and particularly Infoblox Intelligence, that's what we do. We do DNS all day, every day. We're not trying to go out and reverse engineer malware. We've asked everybody else to do that for us. We do it every day, all day. And as a result of that, we're very good at DNS. We are really good at threat intelligence. We're strong at data science, and we're bringing together those things in a way that our customers have an insanely low false positive rate because of the expertise that we're bringing in the network.
All right. Let's close. If you could just tell us what are some of the questions that the customers might be asking themselves if they're trying to decide if something like DNS detection and response is right for them?
So I think what they want to look at is, so first I would say yes, everybody needs to have detection at the DNS level. And then when they go to look at their providers, what options they have out there, first things I would do is ask whether or not they're doing intelligence that's aggregated, meaning I'm pulling together someone else's intel. I'm curating, meaning I'm like making someone else's intel better, or they're actually creating their own intel. You want to go with people who are creating their own intel. Aggregation is a bad strategy. And another thing I would do is say, ask that potential provider, tell me about something that's only seen in DNS.
Right.
And if they can't answer that question, turn heels and walk away.
Renée, this is great stuff. I really appreciate you updating us on the DNS security space. It's always fascinating. Thanks for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We've been talking with Dr. Renée Burton, Head of Threat Intelligence with Infoblox. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.